There are some people who say that this arrest was illegal. In fact, Mr. Assange was in the Ecuadorian embassy for around 7 years. And this is, I think, something like a prison for him. And a very bad situation only because of wrong and false accusations from two Swedish girls. We understand that this was just a pretext. The reason is that Washington wants to punish all whistleblowers. And the work of Julian Assange is very fruitful, and he's world famous because he has exposed American war crimes to a global public. And it is very necessary that we have people like Julian Assange, and therefore it is a very sad story that he was now taken into British custody. And of course, we have to be afraid that he will be extradited to the US.
Hmm. And in your opinion, why is Julian Assange arrested right now?
Well, there are several instances to discuss. One is that at the same time, Chelsea Manning, who was pardoned by outgoing President Obama, is now under arrest again. And the most important British blogger, Craig Murray, a former British diplomat, had just applied to visit Julian Assange. And I think the authorities were under some kind of pressure to do so. Also, it is very necessary, if we see what is being done by the US in Venezuela and in other places, and the trouble they cause in Syria since years, and all this international bad behavior. We don't need to talk about Britain. This is really crazy. You know, the Skripal affair, another poisoning with so-called Novichok, a chemical poison, and all these kind of propaganda they have really institutionalized in Great Britain. I think they have such a lot of bad press that they needed something to crack down on those who try to do a whistleblowing effort. It's really a kind of oppression.
Hmm. I see. And in your opinion, what is his possible future look like?
I'm not very sure. President Moreno of Ecuador has said that he was given assurances that he would not be extradited to a country where he's threatened by the death penalty. But what is such an assurance worth? In fact, I'm not quite sure. So I don't know what will happen now. One thing is clear: the Western powers obviously are very firmly put not to let the man go free, and that is terrible.
Hmm.
He was in prison for 7 years already on false accusations.
Hmm. And what impact will Julian Assange arrest have on other journalists? Will they be afraid to do the work which he did?
Certainly, this is not only a punishment for Julian Assange. Certainly, this will affect, the journalism freedom in our Western countries very strongly, and also what happened to Snowden and his fate, and that he's now living in Russia. Apart from his family, he cannot go home. These are things that we have to take into our mind. What is the amount of cracking down on freedom the Western governments are ready to do to oppress their own people when they are posed to start new crimes? The US is planning an attack on Iran. We have Foreign Minister Pompeo running like amok internationally and trying to put a coalition of countries together to attack this country. They are going far beyond what the United Nations resolutions are in the case of Israel, acknowledging Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which is against UN resolution, or the annexation of the Golan Heights of Syria against any resolution of the UN. So there is certainly no crime the West is not committing to somehow, fulfill their crazy agenda.